Good to see a good attendance within the chamber today, so welcome to you, and welcome to those of members and others who are joining us online this afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of Inverclyde Council. This meeting is held remotely and also in person, and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and the comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Do we have any apologies or declarations of interest?
We have an apology for absence from Councillor McCabe. Roberts will now move to an attendance roll call before proceeding to the declarations of interest. The following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in person.
Councillor Brooks.
And chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present remotely.
Councillor Clougherty.
Present chamber.
Councillor Crowther.
Present remotely.
Councillor Curley.
Sorry, I'm still recovering.
Councillor Daisley.
Present remotely.
Councillor Hellier.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Jackson.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Law. Councillor McCormick.
Present remotely.
Councillor Maguire.
Present.
Provost Mackenzie.
In the chamber.
Councillor McVeigh.
In chamber.
Councillor Moran.
In the chamber.
Councillor Nelson.
Chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present chamber.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present remotely.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
And Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Well, thank you. You'll have heard the apology from Councillor McCabe. Councillor McCabe is in hospital today having an operation, and I'm sure you'll join with me, members, in wishing him all the best for that and a speedy recovery to be back with us at the earliest opportunity. The one item on the agenda today, and it is for the Chief Executive recruitment process, and I would go to the Chief Executive, please.
Through yourself, Provost. Good afternoon, members. The paper in front of you is following on from the last council meeting when you were looking at the recruitment process in relation to the Chief Executive. The current process has been in place for over 20 years, and in line with modernising the council, we asked the recruitment company to benchmark with other local authorities what they do. You will see, and I'll remind elected members who weren't involved in the process when I was recruited, in section 3.4, the current arrangements are that 6 elected members are involved in the shortlisting panel. There is then a peer appraisal, which is staff and stakeholders. There is then a psychometric testing or a sensor, and it was a competence-based discussion. All of that information is given to the final panel, which currently is 22 elected members. Traditionally, although it does not say anything in the note, there is 2 candidates that go through to the final interview, although it can be more. And the final interview, there's a confidential ballot in which elected members are asked to vote and then successively vote until they have someone who has a majority. There are benefits, no doubt, to having 22 elected members, in that 22 elected members get the opportunity to have a say in relation to the Chief Executive. And there are disadvantages in the sense that I suppose you have to convince, if you're an external candidate, at least 12 elected members who don't know you to vote for you. We have asked them to benchmark with other local authorities. They have looked across Scotland Almost all local authorities in Scotland use a panel of some description, and the panel varies in size depending on the number of elected members. They have come back to us to give us a suggested panel, or either 5 or 7 was their suggestion. We also looked at a number of things that we do that's traditional when doing chief executive assessments. That includes having a short leading panel, and we are suggesting the short leading panel should be the final panel on this occasion. Psychometric testing, a stakeholder meeting which would be with community planning partners and some elected members. This would feed into a process which would be 7 elected members. It would have an external chief executive advising it. Members will remember last time it was the current chief executive who gave advice to the panel. There is obvious benefits in relation to this because you're reducing the process, which should make it quicker, and obviously it would be more attractive to external candidates potentially. Having said all this, to be absolutely clear, this is a post like no other post in the council. It is not. There's no HR process in relation to this. And so therefore it is a completely a political decision how this council wants to recruit its chief executive. Mona, Lindsay and I are happy to answer any process questions, and it'll be up to elected members to decide how they want to finally review and decide their panel. I'm happy to answer any questions in relation to the process, Thomas.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Do we have any questions for the Chief Executive or the other officers present? Councillor Brooks, please.
I promise this question. Should we decide to change, would it be a change to standing orders or standing orders not come into play here?
Thank you. Thank you, Ross. It wouldn't require a change to standing orders, so this is not referred to in the standing orders.
Okay.
And Councillor Nelson, please.
Thank you. So you mentioned modernising. Yeah, I couldn't see anything in the paper to see how long the other councillors have been doing, you know, the process differently from what we do it. So do we have any information how long have they been doing that forever? You know, because they're bigger councils, as you mentioned, where maybe they've got 80 members or something, so they have a panel of 20 or something around about the size of this council. You know, do you have an answer?
Through yourself, Provost, so I can tell elected members that there was either 9 or 11 on the panel in relation to Glasgow. It's not that they usually have a panel of 20 in the bigger local authorities. And having been involved in a number of local authorities, it tends to be that in their standing orders they have a recruitment panel, which can be 5, it can be 7, it can be 9. But I don't know the numbers and how long that's happened. I just know that over a number of years. It's quite unusual. Orkney have all their elected members who are involved. It would be fair to say that Orkney struggled to recruit, and that doesn't mean it was about this process. And I believe Murray is the other one that involves all other elected members, but they're the only 2 that we can find across Scotland.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Quinn, please.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Yeah, can you tell me, obviously it mentions in the report that we had conducted a survey and contacted a number of councils, and I think it says there were 20 who responded to that. So do we know the size of that 20? So I think we said the majority don't use this process, so I'm just trying to understand, are they comparable in terms of size of ours? I've got another, do you want me to do that one at a time, or do you want?
Let's answer that one.
Just one.
Thank you. Through you. Of the 20 local authorities we got back to us in the benchmarking, there were a real variety of local authorities. I mean, there were some that were similar sized to us, and the bigger authorities as well. It's really diverse mixture. And you're right, one got back in terms of that survey to see the people who got all elected members.
Okay, Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, thanks. So we don't have a list of numbers, if you don't, so obviously class over the, we just kind of understand if you get how many of the small ones don't do it rather than just 20. So it didn't really give me the, you know, sort of to benchmark it. The other thing is, obviously the most interview panels, we have to look at gender balance as a specific, so there's a, you know, I know it can never always be achieved, but there's a legal requirement to aim for gender balance within our panels. So in terms of a political split, how are we going to ensure a gender balance, and also do we know how other councils, when it is a political split, deal with independent councillors and their place within there? Because clearly, if so, when we're looking at here, we've got the recommendation of one councillor to represent 5 people. How can the other 4 have a say and exercise their responsibilities if then councillor elected individuals as independents? Thank you.
Mrs. Brown?
Thank you, Bob. So firstly, dealing with the issue of gender balance. So the council's policy says that there should be a representative of each gender on a panel where possible. So that would be 1 representative. So as long as there's 1 male and 1 female, we would meet the council's policy. It could be suggested that it would be good practice for the gender balance to reflect the overall gender balance of the council. So the overall gender balance is that there are 7 females, which represent roughly about 32% of the elected members. So provided that the panel represented that, I think that would be broadly acceptable. If that weren't to be the case, if it was felt that there was a balance that's skewed towards males, it could be that the advisors to the panel would also be female. I'm aware that Mrs. Ray will be on the panel as well, who's obviously clearly female. So the overall panel, albeit that the elected members clearly would be a complete balance of male and female, the people in the room will be broadly gender balanced. It will never be a perfect balance in relation to that, but we have to go with the overall balance of the council. Okay, and then your question in relation to independent members, I think it's difficult because if we base that on each individual independent member, it could mean that some of them just don't get onto it at all. So the only way to do it is to club those together, which results in there being 1 representative of the independent members. I don't know a better way of doing it. You know, there's no way that every independent member can be on. So the fact that you're not in a party, that I suppose that's a consequence of that. So what would happen is that they'd be aggregated so that there's 1 member that would represent all of the independent members.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown. Ms. Councillor Quinn?
Yeah, sorry, just a couple of points, sorry to labour quite, I think it's quite important. So I think you said standing orders that only details there should only be 1 of each gender on. Is that potentially up for review? Because I you know, having 1 of each, you know, in the current count. So that's probably a point that you could take separate from that. It just seems, yeah, a bit out of kilter with.
Just for clarity, it's not standing orders, so it's just the council's recruitment policy. So it's something that I'm sure that is consistently under review, but something that can be looked at. But at the moment, that's what it says. It's one of each.
Okay. Yes, so not a labour the point about the independence, but you know, so if we look at the panel when we do political balance, so I don't think I should suffer because the folk of Europe decided to vote for me as an independent. So I should have the same the fair percentage chance of being on the panel than anyone else. So if you're an I'm not picking on SNP, I'm just doing it for the maths, it's easier because it's 6. So if they've got 2 6, they've got a 30% chance of, you know, a third a chance to be on there, which I've now not, I've got 1 of 5. So because Guruk have elected an independent, then they're getting less of a representation potentially than those that haven't. So I'm not sure there's an answer to that question. I just want to put it out there that it's really unfair for visitor independents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. Councillor Armstrong, please.
Thanks, promised. Yeah, I just have a process question, and I suppose it follows on quite neatly from Councillor Quinn's points. I mean, what is the process for the independents, our independent colleagues, to select the elected member who will be on the panel? Is that names out of a hat? Do you 1 name out of a hat? How is that actually going to work? Thank you.
It's hope that agreement can be reached, which I think is often necessary with these things, is that there would be a degree of effort made to try to reach an agreement. And I appreciate it's a difficult situation. I appreciate that everyone wants to be on it, but to an extent that's party politics. You know, that's what happened. You know, the independent members don't have the backing of their of their party, so that there has to be a degree of sensibility approach to it. In terms of trying to agree it, but there's no hard and fast rule. There's no way of of trying to determine it. It's hoped that members would be able to reach an agreement on it.
Thank you. Councillor Nelson.
Would you say that it's less democratic then to have a panel than it is to have the 22 members all being decided?
No, I wouldn't. It's a representative panel of the council. I wouldn't say it's any less democratic.
Any other member? Anything online? Can I have someone move the recommendations?
Provost, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation that those are 7 members, elected members, 3 Labour, 2 SNP, 1 Conservative, 1 Independent.
Thank you. And I see Councillor McGuire has her hand up. Is it to second this?
Yes, Provost, I'll be seconding the motion that the council leader has just moved.
Thank you, Councillor McGuire. Is there anybody otherwise minded? Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Provost. I think we have tried to find a means by which all 22 councillors could have their equal voice in this process, but I don't think we've been able to do it. So that leaves us in a position where we would put forward the amendment of going with option 1 in the paper.
Will you give a second?
Yes, Provost, I'm happy to second the amendment. I suppose there's a few years I was involved in the last chief executive recruitment process, and I must admit, I did find it quite a good process. I enjoyed the fact that also the panel, the shortlisting, but also I really enjoyed the fact that all elected members had the opportunity to. So I think I'm happy to support the amendment with the going for option 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curley. Councillor Moran is the proposer of the motion. Do you have anything further to wish to add?
No point, none further to say.
Thank you, Councillor Moran.
You Provost, so I'll now move to roll call vote. So just to be clear, Provost. Sorry, we're not going into a debate. There was questions at the start, and then I thought we would go to.
There's been a proposal on an amendment. We move to a vote.
So you said at the start that was just questions for officers. So it's just we've had no opportunity for having.
What would you like to say?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so really I think from my questions you can gather where I sit on here. So the process, the status quo. Sorry, Councillor Wilson, do you want to say something?
I just think there's been a proposal put forward, an amendment, and traditionally we would go straight to a vote.
You're correct, Councillor Wilson, but I'm allowing Councillor Quinn the opportunity.
I accept your decision.
Thank you.
Thanks, Provost. I think I'm just clarifying at the start. You said if there's any questions for officers. I thought we were having questions and then we're moving into these. So I'm just explaining why I'd got lost. So apologies that I don't seem to be up to speed with the process as much as Councillor Wilson, but I'm thankful that he's been kind enough to let me speak. Thank you. Yeah, I think back to what Councillor Robertson has said, we were hoping. I think we've had a long conversation, and thanks Robert for inviting me in and having an opportunity to talk through where I'm coming from. You know, so I thought there that we could potentially reach a compromise and look at the process, but obviously that wasn't the case, which I'm sad about. But that's democracy, I suppose, what they say. So the status quo might not be perfect, but it's definitely democratic. We're talking about numbers here. We've got a unique position. We've actually got 6 independent councillors in this, which is 6 out of 22. It's fairly significant. So to have one on there and the rest of us who can't be represented by someone else, I would argue it isn't as democratic as it should be. So I'll have 1 in a 5 chance. I've been on the first panel, 1 in 4 chance to be part of the assessment centre. And as I said before, I cannot pass on my preferences to anyone else and be represented there. So as an independent councillor, the chances are I will not have any part to play within that process. And also when I look at Europe, so I'm democratically elected to make these choices on behalf of the people of Europe. And when I look at the political hierarchy, then my fellow ward councillors, Councillor Reynolds as SNP and Councillor Hellier from Labour Group will potentially not be on that panel either. So Europe's voice will not be heard on that panel, and it's a fairly important decision. They'll leading this council forward. And also what we're deciding today is that 15 people from here will not have a direct input into the decision of who will lead this council. And potentially some of us, partners, will have more of a say and an input potentially than us that are actually being democratically elected. I'm really not sure why we're deciding that. And definitely 11 will have no say at all. The chief exec will be directly reporting to R22. So we are accountable for that decision, but we've played no part. So when we look at the argument is that other councillors, but 84 in Glasgow, I can understand why they're not actually sitting there in a panel with 84. That's practically impossible, but we are small enough. But I would argue that Glasgow, with the individual councillors, their touch with the council and their interactions with the chief exec within their council will be limited. But here we've got 22, and that interaction is daily, weekly. We've got that touch. So that's why it's important for us to build that relationships from pretty much the interview process. So I think the benefits that you talked here does not outweigh. I don't feel that outweigh our responsibility as the democratically elected people. Partnership on a panel, we are not democratically elected to make that decision. We are, and I have a slight issue that you can vote to remove your own responsibilities to play that part, but you are literally going to vote to potentially remove any input that I've got as a democratic elected person to play a part there. Mine's removed, isn't it? Yes, you can vote for it. So my argument is you can vote Councillor Wilson for yourself, but the fact that you're making a decision that potentially to remove it for others is something I've got. Feel free to stand up and disagree. If you get your own input, then I'll be happy to respectfully listen to you and not interrupt. So thank you. Yeah. So I'm actually finishing off now. So the biggest part is this: if we've got 22 people that are invested in this process, when we actually get our chief exec, we're 22 people who've been invested in that decision. We will not create that hierarchy of those that were in and those that were out, and that's the risk that we've got here. So I would ask the rest to think carefully. You are not wrongly. You might be happy with this decision, but are you happy in removing that right of others that potentially will not play any part? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. I see there's a few hands up now online. We're kind of decided that we're going to vote.
Apologies, Provost. Mine is a point of order.
Let me hear your point of order, Councillor.
My point of order is just apologies if maybe I've not followed along fully, but can I just confirm if there was an amendment or motion put forward by Councillor Quinn there? Just I want to make sure that I know what we're voting for.
No, there's nothing put forward. There's been a motion.
Sorry, I just wanted to check.
There's been a motion and an amendment.
Could I ask a point of order as well, please? To ask about standing orders, you said that this wasn't changing standing orders, but what's been proposed here doesn't adhere to standing orders. So is this equivalent to a suspension of standing orders for this one recruitment process? I'm a bit confused, we have a standing order, but then we're not going to be following it.
No, so there's no standing orders that relates to the recruitment of the chief executive. So the standing orders don't relate to recruitment; they relate to the conduct of the council. So the recruitment process is in our recruitment policies, and there's a policy that deals with the recruitment of the chief executive, and that's what we're seeking to change today. But that's not anything to do with standing orders, so it doesn't require a suspension of standing orders.
Right. So can I further ask, if this is changed today, does that mean it's changed for this one instance, or is it changed forever until it's changed back again?
Unless specifically provided for, it would be changed forever until it's changed back again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Daisley and then Councillor Reynolds, and then we will go to a vote. Councillor Daisley.
Thank you. Thanks, Provost.
Okay.
It's just a comment. Every one of the 22 members on this council were elected by the public to provide oversight, scrutiny, and make important decisions on their behalf. Choosing a new chief exec to lead our council is one of those important decisions. So to remove the input of all 22 elected members could be, or some of the 22 elected members could be perceived by the public as the removal of their representatives' right to make that decision on their behalf. So I can't see how removing an already democratic process is fair on the public that we represent. So option 1 to me seems the most sensible. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Daisley. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you. I again was waiting because it was a bit confusing at the top, just asking questions of officers. I'd like to support what's already been said by Councillor Quinn and Councillor Daisley, particularly as a Gurrick councillor. I support Lynn in that there's a danger that our town is not representative. I agree with Councillor Daisley's comments that it removes my democratic responsibility. There's also a concern about the gender balance. One of each doesn't really make sense to me either. But my great concern is about the independence. Just because they're not a political group doesn't mean to say they should be treated as such, and they shouldn't be at a disadvantage or say that this is a consequence of them choosing not to be part of a political group. And for me, option 1 is the only reasonable outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor McGee.
Thank you, Provost. I've listened to the discussion, and the council operates on a committee system where decisions made in committees are not on, but affect my work can happen. Europe is not represented in the planning board. However, a decision made in the planning board which could affect Europe, probably in the past and in the future. This is the system we work under. How many councillors do we need to pick a chief executive? I'm very confident that when people put forward here, the 7 and the 4, okay, I have no issue whatsoever. How many do we need? We can't all make a decision on every single issue that comes up at every single committee. We can make our views known to the convener and other members, and they will make that decision. Sometimes you get the decision you hope for, sometimes you don't. This is where we are. This is the best way of doing it. As far as independents go, I'm more than happy to have a discussion with the other independent councillors to try to come to a consensus. But what happens when you don't come to a consensus as independents or as in this chamber? We have a vote. And the democratic process. And you might win the vote, you might not. That's the way it goes, Provost. And that's how we proceed. I'm happy to support option 2 as stated.
Thank you, Councillor McVeigh. I know we're going to vote. I want to make sure everybody that wants to speak is heard. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Provost. Thanks for bringing me in. And what I have spoken, but I spoke to the raise an amendment vote. We didn't have a debate prior to that, and I didn't really plan on saying anything other than really I just wanted to comment on what Councillor McVeigh said, which is yes, we do have a committee system, but we also have a full council, and when things are deemed significant, they come to full council, they don't remain at committee level, and I think that the recruitment of our chief executive is one of the most significant things that we can do. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor. Mrs. Curtis.
Thank you, Provost. So I'll now move to roll call vote. So for clarity, the motion is with Councillor Moran, seconded by Councillor Maguire, and that's in respect of option 2, which is in your report, which, to be clear, is to change the process so that 7 elected members are on the shortlisting panel and who are involved in conducting the final interview. The amendment is with Councillor Robertson and seconded by Councillor Curley, and that's to propose option 1, which is to continue with the current process of 6 elected members on the shortlisted panel and all elected members involved in the final interview. Is everyone clear on the options, the motion and the amendment? Okay. So when I call your name, can you please indicate if you wish to vote for the motion, for the amendment, or if you wish to abstain? Councillor Armstrong.
Amendment.
Councillor Bren.
Motion.
Councillor Brooks.
Motion.
Councillor Cassidy.
Motion.
Councillor Clockerty.
Motion.
Councillor Crowther.
Amendment.
Councillor Curley.
Amendment.
Councillor Daisley.
Amendment.
Councillor Halier.
Motion.
Councillor Jackson.
Motion.
Councillor McCormick.
Motion.
Councillor McGuire.
Motion.
Provost Mackenzie.
Motion.
Councillor McVeigh.
Motion.
Councillor Moran.
Motion.
Councillor Nelson.
Abstain.
Councillor Quinn.
Amendment, not mostly.
Councillor Reynolds.
Amendment.
Councillor Robertson. Amendment. Councillor Wilson.
Motion.
Okay, so we have 12 votes for the motion, 7 votes for the amendment, and 1 abstention. The motion is carried.
Thank you, Mrs Brown. Just for clarity, Mrs Brown, is it a case of now the parties and the groups will forward to you their nominations to sit on this panel?
Yes, provided that members are happy with that, that can be done today, or members won't have time to consider who their nominees will be, then those can be sent to me if possible before the end of Monday next week. That would be helpful.
Thank you, Mrs
Thank
Brown.
you.
Thank you, members, for your attendance. Thank you.